promotions.
My name is Shanna Sterling, and May is Lupus Awareness Month. I've been suffering from lupus for about 10 years now, and I just would like to explain to you my walk in lupus. It is an autoimmune disease that your body attacks your body. Simple. A normal person, if they caught a cold, their white blood cells would go into action. And when the bacteria is gone, it would stop. In a person like myself with lupus, it continues to go. Lupus can attack any organ in a person's body. Mine is attacking my skin and my scalp. So, in other words, it tells my scalp the hair follicles are not supposed to be there. So, if I go into a flare up, very much I can get bald spots in my head because the lupus is attacking my hair follicles. It also attacks my skin, which gives me bad dark rashes. The best thing that I can do for myself is to take my medicine, which I do sometimes, but I also do essential oils and I also do natural remedies such as ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a herb, it's a root and it's good for inflammation and amongst other things. I do turmeric, it's also good for inflammation and a host of other things. I eat a plant-based diet. I try my best to walk every day or every other day to get at least 16,000 steps in. I also journal and I try to manage my stress as much as I can so I won't go into a flare up. So if you know someone who has lupus, just be their friend. Sometimes all we need is for you to listen to us. And to follow my story, you can catch me on Instagram at Shanna Talk Lupus. You can email me at Wellness Talk with Shanna 202 at Gmail. And that's it for now. Bye.
There's these three doors, okay? We are City Drake. You don't know, there's an event today, there's an event tomorrow. I'll put more information on the area, but you want to go to Andre Spicer on the Valley. Andre Spicer on the Valley. Andre Spicer on the Valley. You understand me? If you don't know, right here in the city of Capital, right here on Women's Boulevard and Thomas Boulevard, right now on a Saturday morning, representing the Hub City Drake. Let's vote for Andre Spicer. Go to work.
Look, we all need to rock together, cause we all on this rock together. Let's resubmit, recompile the data. Need a helping hand, the color of the hand shouldn't matter. Government show the hand, it's about damn time. Can't fight amongst each other, it's about mankind. Set your alarm, wake up with your eyes on the prize, like a baker in the kitchen, wanna watch the cake rise. No protest in the streets, cops with guns blazing, as we all rise to the occasion. It's one nation, so no more sitting.
Good morning. My name is Emma Sharif, and I'm a candidate for mayor for the city of Compton. I am a resident of Compton for 30 years. I've raised my children here. I'm a former school teacher for Compton Unified School District and a former Compton Unified School District Board trustee. I am now serving as the city council person representing District 4 for the past 6 years. My experience on the Compton School Board have really prepared me a lot for what we're looking at today here this happened in the United States. There on the school board, we were able to build our first school in 35 years. And also a program that I advocated there hard for, the Emergency Repair Program, which is a program that was put in place by the state and which granted funding to help and assist our schools. And this program have funded 28 of our schools in the city of Compton. And those funds are still coming in today, allow the school district to be able to prepare the roofs on our schools, to prepare the football fields and track fields at our middle schools and high schools, and the needs and much needed needs and much needed repairs at the school district was done through that emergency program. Board member for Compton Unified School District, we were able to build our first school in this city in 35 years. Also, I advocated for a program called the Emergency Repair Program. That program was through the state of California, and it actually provided funding, much needed funding for 28 of our schools in this city. And those fundings allowed the school district to be able to repair the roofs of the schools, the track fields and football fields and all of our different school sites. And that is something I'm very proud of, because that is something that was much needed in our schools, which roofs were solid and what I did. So this is something that I would say that I'm very proud of. As your city council for the 4th district, I've allocated for cleanup here about Dublin. I've allocated for the streets that was repaired. I've done $5.9 million in street repairs, and we have an additional $37 million now that we're doing some additional funding for us to be able to complete a lot of the work that needs to be done. These are the things that I know that was concerned for the investment in the community. Making sure that we have a tree trimming contract in place, making sure that all the living documents and the alleys was being addressed. These things are being done. It was done while I was on the school board and on the city council and allocated to these things to take place. I am the most effective, sound, experienced candidate. I'm number 1 on the ballot. Emma Sharif.
You ain't gotta like me, but I'ma do the right thing like Spike.
We're still standing.
Freedom fighters, fight for the cause. Still in the streets marching.
Still stand. We're still standing.
Every life on the planet has
Still standing here. Still
fight till we
standing
get justice.
Good evening, Facebook family. This is the mayor of Compton, the only 3-time elected mayor of this city. People always ask me, why do you say that? And I say that because in my election contest versus Eric Perridan in the city of Compton, I prevailed. Now, Election Code 16900 says the person who is determined to be the winner of an election contest remains in his seat until all appeals are heard. But of course, the California Appellate Court in the 9th District, which is downtown LA, they removed me before I could get to the California Supreme Court, before I can get to the U.S. District Court, before I could get to the United States Supreme Court. And the reason why they did that is because they simply just could. They simply just could. Because power concedes nothing without a demand. You hear me now? Powerful people don't care what you say if you have no power. If you have no power, why should they care? And even though I was a powerful mayor, once stripped of my position as mayor, I lost my political power. I had a lot of folks turn on me, people that I thought was going to be with me from now on. And I'm gonna name one, Danny Bakewell. Brother, I was with you even when your daughter died, brother. And you turned on me like a doorknob, but that's okay. I'm not tripping because that didn't test the content of my character, it tested yours. When you asked me to march on Sujan Du, I did it. When you asked me to go all the way out to Pasadena about the sister that was shot, people have forgot this. The little sister shot in her car asleep by the police. I did it. Wherever you said go, because I was a faithful little soldier, I did all that. I wouldn't give you what you wanted in the city, but I did what I had to do when it related to black folk. So when they removed me from my seat, they violated the law, but who cares? They just the judges. They get to do that, right? But I was issued a certificate of election because the only person that can issue a certificate of election after an election contest is the judge who determines the contest, not the appellate court, not the California Supreme Court, not the federal court. And Judge Cherlin never issued you an election certificate, brother. So I was the mayor all the time while you were sitting there. I get it. I just didn't have the power to remove you. And I ain't mad at you. I just been on a 20-year hiatus. This marks the 20th year that I have not been the mayor of Compton. 20 years. And for 20 years, I've been fighting as a man who was born and raised and taught to grow up to be mayor and to love his people and fight for his people and be there for his people. I did that. And even though I was indicted by the very department that my political opponent worked for, and even though the California State Attorney General decided, well, just because he fired this man's brother, and just because he's up against the police, and just because some of these police have become DAs and they're bringing these charges, there's no conflict of interest. So it's cool with me. I'm good because I'm about at the end of my fight. I'm about at the end of my fight. I see it, I understand it, and it has been a long 20 years of fighting for the people of Compton. I just want to do a little bit of review about some of the things that I saw as mayor, and then I want to tell you what my next move is and how this is going to all play out. I remember when I was not elected to anything, when little Philip Fisher, 2 years old, was shot in his daddy's arms in the middle of a drive-by. And I remember watching the news, and I remember my children beneath my feet playing with their toys. And I remember the bitter tears that I cried that day, thinking that that could have been my child. And I remember when my wife walked in the room and saw me crying. And I remember when she said to me, why don't you stop crying and why don't you change this? Why don't you run for mayor? I remember when I took $50 out of my pocket, because that's what it cost to run for mayor back in 1989 when I first ran. And I remember filing. And I remember the debates, and I remember talking about, what was truly important in Compton. And my number one priority was to stop the killing. And I kind of understood what was causing the killing because I lived through it. I lived it. And so because my heart was tied here and tied to it, I threw my hat in the race at 29. I had $600 to run my whole campaign given to me by my beloved father. I remember walking through the neighborhoods and telling people, listen, we can change all this. We can teach our brothers and sisters. We can teach our Latino brothers. We can teach everybody here, you know, what Marvin Gaye said, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. And I remember having plans how I could take money out of certain things and put money into other things so people that never had a chance in life might have one. I remember losing that race, taking third place out of 9 candidates. Then I remember Walter Tucker Sr. going on to be victorious over Chuck Esters. But through that whole race, the thing I remembered the most was an old venerable man who lived in my neighborhood named Mr. Eaton. I went to Mr. Eaton's house to campaign, and I knocked on the door, and he sat there and listened to me spiel for an hour. And he never said a word. And I said, gee, this man is listening to me intently. I mean, he gets what I'm saying. And at the end of my tirade, he said, Omar, you can show me better than you can tell me. Omar. Now, it was no coincidence that this man knew my name. He had lived down the street from me all my life. I knew all his kids. He knew me from the day my mother brought me home from Dominguez Valley Hospital to the day that I walked down to his door and told him I was ready to be mayor. And I lost that race. And I remember when Wesley Sanders and Walter Tucker, who was the mayor, set me down. And they said, you're going to be mayor, but you got to change the way you talk. You got to change the way you do things, because white folks ain't going to let you be mayor long if you keep talking like you're talking. But what I couldn't see and I would never imagine is that the son of Wesley Sanders would be the one to stick a knife in my back. The son of the man who loved me. A man who, when he was dying, called for me to come to his bedside. Told me to bring your daddy with you. And he told my father, he said, watch out after your son. He's going to be the mayor. But if he talks the way he talks, these white folks are going to destroy him. I heard that. And I knew when I became mayor, I would have a great debt to the men who stood in the positions that I was about to stand in before them. I remember when I became mayor, I remember the FBI chasing me for 6 years, trying to get me to take money out of a briefcase that I never took. And I remember warning certain people that were on that council with me that these people are not who they say they are. But it wasn't that I didn't take the money because they were the FBI. I didn't take the money because it wasn't mine. I didn't take the money because I wasn't going to trade for anybody the right to think clearly and decide what was best for the people that lived in Compton. Turned out they were the FBI. Turned out they persecuted my brother and my sister. And even though they played tapes of my brother and my sister, councilperson and mayor, talking about me terribly, I had the common sense, even back when I was 31 years old, to know that it's not what they're saying, but rather the purpose for you paying that tape, which guides me to make my decision not to testify against either one of them. And I want you to know I paid dearly for not testifying against Walter. They came up with some obscure IRS debt and told me I owed them $58,000. To wit, they began to garnish my check both in Linwood and in Compton. Brought me to the brink of disaster financially. made me take out a 10% interest loan, and I had to sneak down there. You hear me? Sneak down to the IRS, pretend like I was just asking what I owed, asked them for it in writing. They laughed because they thought I didn't have it. When I handed them that money, didn't know them nothing and did not testify against my brother or my sister. Then I remember when I became mayor, working like 10 hours a day in Linwood, I would come over to City Hall and start working all over again. And a lot of times I would leave City Hall and it would be nobody there but me, because I wanted to be serious about what God had given me, to be serious about the position that He had set me in. I wanted to be serious about it because I knew that the lives of human beings were weighing in the balance and the difference could be me. I remember when a little 9-year-old boy was sitting at a bus stop at what was called the Transit Center. And I remember that he had got caught up in a crossfire between Crips and Bloods. And I remember how he grabbed his 7-year-old brother and his 5-year-old brother and he ran with them until a bullet pierced his chest and took his life with his brother's arm, and while his brother's lay in his arms. I remember going to the scene of that murder, and I remember a Compton PD crying. And I remember asking that man, "Detective, why are you crying?" He said, "I'm crying because I'm so tired of this bullshit." He said, "You see this car right here? That's the assailant's car." I never forget, it was a white Cadillac with blue interior with 2 blue dice hanging from the rearview mirror. And I remember when he showed me the police report that the suspects in the killing were Bloods, Pyrus. And he said, "Brother, that's why I'm crying. I'm sick of this shit." I remember raising the money and paying for that child's funeral. I remember paying for the church. I remember paying for the casket. I remember paying for the suit. I remember paying the preacher. I remember buying the grave. I remember the tears I cried while I was doing it. And then I remember 2 weeks later being served a lawsuit where that child's parents were suing me because they said I promised to give them the money to bury the child and not pick everything out by myself. And I remember sitting on the dais and weeping because I couldn't believe that people would stoop to that level of lowness. I had no idea that somebody had gotten their ear and put them up to it. I remember when Burrell and McDonald were murdered. I remember that I got the phone call first. I remember that I was asked to go to the hospital, and I remember when I was asked to greet the family. I remember walking into the morgue room and seeing their bodies. I remember that they were still reaching for their guns. I remember the holes that were in their faces. And then I remember having to walk out of that room. And I remember having to tell Kevin's mother that her son was gone. I remember having to hug her and to hold her hand. I remember one night I was asleep and I got a phone call from my dear friend Frank Wheaton, who was acting as the city's spokesperson. 3:30 in the morning. And I remember he said there was a homicide. 3 little girls were murdered. And I said, "Well, brother, can it wait until the morning? He said, no, brother, because the father of one of these little girls is sitting on the porch, and he said he not going to bed until he sees your face. And I remember going into Tragnew Park Crip neighborhood at 3:30 in the morning. And I remember swallowing so hard that I almost could not, because I did not want to face a man who had just lost his daughter. And I remember walking up to him step by step, knowing that I was going to hear something that was going to forever change my life. And I remember him coming off that porch, folding into my arms and saying, I wanted you to hear the last words of my daughter as she lay in the gutter with a bullet in her body. And he said to me, my daughter opened her eyes and looked at me while I held her in my arms and said to me, Daddy, why? And died. I remember that same night when the retaliation struck. I had just got home and took my clothes off, and I remember having to put my clothes on again. And this time I had to go into another crib neighborhood. And I remember getting up and going, and I remember walking to an apartment building. I remember knocking on the door and walking inside. And there on a couch, crying her eyes out, was one of my students who was playing mother to a baby sister who was the victim of a bullet and shot that night in retaliation for something she had not done. I remember going to a house in Fruittown and walking up to a scene where a prostitute had been cut into pieces. And I watched as the cops drank coffee, ate donuts, and laughed. They shooting already. I can't even finish talking. I remember so many things that happened while I sat there trying to figure out what's going on. And then I remember when some dope came up missing out the police station. And it wasn't a little bit of dope, it was a whole lot of dope. And I remember when the guns came up missing, when the weed came up missing, and the PCP came up missing. And at that point, it began to become clear to me, beyond all that was going on, beyond the government bringing cocaine in, and beyond the strife that was in the community, the unemployment, I might not be able to change all of that, but I could change this one thing. I could change the policing culture in this community. And when I made that decision, being threatened with my life, being threatened with prosecution, being threatened with destruction, people saying, we're going to destroy you, we're going to destroy your family, your women are going to be turned into hoes, you ain't going to have nothing when we get through with you. I remember casting that vote anyway. Because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired of seeing Black people and brown people mutilated and gunned down in the streets of Compton. Then I remember the rumors. You're going to be indicted. And I remember thinking, for what? I mean, I turned down the money. Things are turning around. Murder had fallen from 93 to 27 while I was there. The potholes were gone. The trees were trimmed. The sidewalks were smooth. Flowers were in places that used to be weeds. People that used to be gangbangers was working. Homes that were burned out and shelled out were being restored. You didn't have to drag trash cans out anymore because I put wheels on them. Created a trash company out of nothing. Then remember being drugged into court by the very agency that we turned the report in about the missing dope to the very DA who read the missing dope report, and being accused by a crime of the very man who said it's okay that 96 kilos of dope is missing. I remember looking at the charges. And I don't want you to trip, because some of you will say, well, yeah, but they did indict me for a phone call, and they indicted me for a bowl of oatmeal, and they indicted me for some in-room movies, and they indicted me for 2 airplane tickets that I didn't order, never received, never seen them, didn't ask for them, but they were purchased with my credit card. I remember them saying, well, you took money from a trip and you spent it on this. Oh, okay, yeah. But what they never told you is that 2 years before they ever indicted me, I wrote a check to the city for $4,000 upon my leaving there and said, if I owe this city anything, take this check. I remember every time that I had to spend more money on a trip than that the city gave me, I wrote them a check. And in fact, if you check the records, I gave the city more money than they ever said I spent. Ain't that funny? But they said it was too late, even though I wrote them the checks before they ever even indicted me, before I even knew I was under investigation. Listen to me carefully. You might be able to hear the bullets ringing outside. Because every night when I lay here in this bed and when I come to you, I'm telling you, and if you live in this community, I'm telling you that every night in this town, they are shooting up a storm. So I'm at the end of this 20-year cycle. And part of that cycle was laying in a prison bed, looking up at the ceiling in solitary confinement, struggling to breathe because I had tuberculosis and didn't know it. Wondering, how did all this happen? And I remember when I finally won in the Supreme Court, after 13 years of fighting, saying the city manager approved my charges, in Compton, that's all that's necessary. And finally having a court agree. Then I remember in 2014, when I was running, I had a heart attack. 3 days before the election, I remember the Compton firefighters that took me to a open emergency room where they cut my pants off in the parking lot and stuck a probe my gonads so that I could be relieved of a piece of my lung that had broke off from the tuberculosis and rolled right up in my heart. And then I remember taking the probes off my body, asking my wife to bring me a suit, putting it on, washing my face, and walking into City Hall to debate Asia Brown after having a heart attack 3 days earlier. Then I remember being brought into court and told by the DA's office in front of a judge, if he runs for mayor, we're going to charge him. And I'm saying, Your Honor, you hear this? This is political. He said, yeah, but nothing I can do about it. Yeah, thanks, Judge Webster. I remember all these things. And I want you to know that come June the 2nd, it will have been 20 years that I've been on this road and fighting this fight. But I'm about to release it into the, I'm going to release this into the universe, and I'm never looking back again. It's time for me to live. I have fought for this town. I have bled for this town and almost died for this town, this place called Compton. So when I say what I'm about to say, I want you to know that I don't arrive at these things lightly. I have looked at both candidates for mayor. I've looked at their strong points and I've looked at their weak points. One I know better than the other, but I have absolutely no doubt that the length of my knowledge of knowing one over the other has nothing to do with the decision that I'm about to reveal to you. I supported James Hayes. I believed he was the smartest, the sharpest, the most intellectual of all the candidates. But the citizens and the county, who after the election was over with, want us to believe that they took 2 weeks to count 8 votes. The decision has been made. And so now we're down to 2. And this is what the race seems to border upon. Some are saying, and I hope you don't hold this against me because I don't want you to, that it's time for the Latinos to have their opportunity. And to that, I say it's been time. You should have got your opportunity years ago. It's more you than it is us. And under those circumstances, Black people would want to have a Latino or a Black person in that seat. But there are some other issues that we can't turn our back from. And they have nothing to do with what color your candidate is. And that is who is best prepared to sit in that middle chair, knowing what I know comes along with that job. Because if you think it's a picnic, if you think it's just cutting ribbons and showing up to folks' birthday parties, yeah, that's part of it. But man, there's some ugly stuff that rolls through that town. There are circumstances and situations that will make you cry. Things that you cannot talk about and things you just got to walk around with and deal with in the heart and mind and spirit that makes up your soul. Now, I don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that you don't lease your buildings because you closing a deficit. I don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that you don't ask for more bonds when you already can't pay off the first ones. We are in trouble. We are in trouble. But I believe in the bottom of my heart that when you are in this much trouble, you cannot hand the keys to the Cadillac to somebody who's never driven a car before, to somebody who's never held an elective post before, to somebody who doesn't understand the pressure, the weight, the gravity of your decisions. Because how can you know if you don't know? If you've never done it before, how can you know this? You can't. It's kind of like you finally coming to the things that your parents were always trying to tell you, but you were just too young to understand. You had to have a certain amount of experience. You have to have a certain amount of understanding to deal with situations that oftentimes are even your capacity to change, and yet you must strive to change them anyway. You must make a way out of no way. And so tonight, I'm officially endorsing Emma Sharif to be the next mayor of Compton. It has nothing to do with the color of his skin. I want you Latino people to understand something. I was the only black politician to endorse Galvan. I stood up and stood out and said, okay, let him have his chance based on the numbers and the facts. And what will happen with Isaac, I don't know. I've tried to be a friend. I've even tried to be a mentor. And in some cases, I've tried to be a father. I don't know. I hope that the best happens for him because I believe in the depths of his heart based on the things that he's done for the people, feeding, clothing, giving, supporting, being there for everybody, black and brown, that he's a good man. But right now, you cannot let a novice in that seat. You did that 8 years ago. You put a novice in, and let's talk some race issues right now. Just for a moment. You put a black female in that seat because the overriding cry of leadership at that time was for females, and black females doubly so. And our Latino brothers and sisters, you have done an admirable job supporting Asia Brown, even as your cars got towed up driving down the street by the many potholes that she never fixed. Let's finish the work. You didn't. And back then I was saying, too young, not ready, not because she didn't have a degree, not because she wasn't well spoken, not because that she could articulate. That wasn't it. It was because I'd been there and I knew what she would face. Now I'm telling you, and this isn't for me, Em and I don't see eye to eye on a whole lot of things. But if I had to leave my house keys, if I had to leave my grandkids, if I had to leave my wallet, if I had to allow somebody to make a decision based on what is best for the things I care about, and this is no knock on Christian. I think he's a fine young man, and I think someday he will be the mayor if he doesn't give up. But at 26 years old, now is not the time. I know that when I was 29 years old, I had the best of intentions to be the good mayor that I thought I could be, but I wasn't aware of what being the mayor meant. I served under Walter. I kept my mouth shut. I listened and I watched him do great things and I watched him make mistakes. And I vowed I wouldn't make the same mistakes, but the things that he did right, I tried to emulate. I never tried to tear what Walter did down. Walter created the Unity Festival. Walter created the Youth Commission. Walter created the Commission on Seniors. He did all that. He showed me that these people issues are important too. And after watching him for 2 years, then I was ready. Because I knew what it was like, or somewhat what it was like, to be the mayor. But you just can't jump in City Hall and think you can run that thing because you got a nice attitude or you believe in God. It doesn't work that way. Peter believed in God and denied Christ 3 times before the cock crowed. Only one of the disciples even bothered to come to the crucifixion. But Mary went, and Martha went, because of their commitment to the one that was going to be put on that cross. There's got to be a certain amount of commitment and experience to sit in that chair, because my God, one mistake and you'll be on a 30-year saga of trying to get out a hole you didn't dig. And so, Emma, I support you to be our next mayor. I pray that you listen to the voices of the community. Don't be consumed by what the administrators in City Hall tell you. Listen to what the people say they want. And they're not asking for much. They're not asking for jazz concerts. They're not asking for celebrity appearances. They don't care what magazine you appear on. They simply want their water bill to go down. They want an explanation as to why we got the highest taxes, but the poorest services. They want to know why there's trash blowing in the streets. They want to know why our trash trucks don't get here till sometimes after 4 o'clock when they put the trash out the day before. They want to know why dead dogs lay in the streets until you physically see the worms crawling out of their body. They want to know why the water bill is so high that Compton, which used to be a beautiful, beautiful green belt, looks like a desert. And these are not issues that are black or brown. They're not Asian Pacific Islander. They're not white. They're just people issues. Please, son and sister, when you become mayor, handle our business. Don't be about self. Be about service.
These individuals right here represent lives that were lost. It started with those who were lost to violence by law enforcement, police officers, but it turned into at-risk youth. Here we don't. We work with the proven risk. Like if we don't do something, they're gonna die. Sometimes we work with them and they still get killed. They still get dead.
We're getting a lot of major donations right now to help out these families from that lockdown situation we had, man. We're trying to bounce back in the community, so we got a lot of major donations coming through, man. We got the youth coming out here, really trying to empower this thing and help out. We're getting them involved. Matter of fact, it's one of them. Show it, bro. Show them that thing we got going on. Gotcha.
Oh, we got cards, shirts.
I got that money, man.
We also have phones that have addresses and numbers for organizations that can help us out.
Wow, it's crazy.
It's about the resource, man. We're trying to really help them out right now.
It's right here. That's where the shootings took place. The mosque. It ain't there no more. It's also where the Stokes funeral was held.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's where they had the Malcolm X speech too.
They charged Jesus with sedition. They said he was discriminating. He would be going to the oppressed. He would be going to the humble. Go to the people who don't know who they are.
No gas, no brakes. Story of my life. Wrecked multiple times. Survived. Took for granted this time. I'm out to get it right. Opposition itself. You self-medicating and attempting suicide with your bad health. White supremacy moving stealth. They planted poisonous trees and we bit. Forbidden fruits. Got my people lit. Every young homie I approach call excuses reasons for having these bad habits. Disrespect seems automatic. They raise wrong. Heart turns into salt quick when caskets feeling emotions high from the tears. When they eulogizing and playing the viewing song. See warriors are few and bangers are plenty. Which means when racial or gangsters turn snitches get at it. Informants are plenty. They say time will tell. Through time and crime committed, don't doubt that they will. Nobody wants the undesirable consequences. Yeah, we all quick to straddle fences, no exemptions. We all accounted for. I know you did it because you was tired of being poor. We all sang that sad song before. Simplistic mindsets keep monopolizing us behind prison doors and graveyard hustles increase. You forever gonna be spiritually broke with a bad plan to the early day of deceased. Cause you don't get it. We all need peace. We all need peace.
We don't care what organization you belong to. We don't care how far in school you went or didn't go. We have to give you credit for shocking the white man by not letting him divide you and use you one against the
You
other.
turn for Christ, you turn for life. But keep yourself check in place, cause don't mean you finally got it all right. If you turn for the world, you minimizing your existence. Time to do my priesting, begging, plead you to repentance. They led me to the slaughter, can't see you dying on my watch. Assigned by the Father to give you all the wisdom I got. Real big homie figure. Never can feel lonely with prayer warriors on a quick dial trigger. Call me up and I'ma ride hard, I use my very own seed. Give you the crown fit for a king that can also follow a strong lead. This fabric don't produce just anything, just like I don't flood streams, cause I can. And babble and clabber with a fake team. Petroleum fuel and ready to go. Like I'm the most needed cause I spit truth to the truthful. Those that are over opinionated don't think that I'm useful and I'm not sorry for not being traditional. Don't even pity the blind religious leaders cause your faults was mentioned to me in the Bible. Speak the need for unity, only dividing the faith. Too many congregations under dictatorship. Please recognize the mistakes. Self-shown to prove through studies. My shoes been muddy, awakened by those buried. And I will seek and find my way, never to be hurried. Never to be hurried.
If we tell you that Negroes are being hung on the street or being shot down illegally, unjustly, and those Negroes should do something to protect themselves, you say you're advocating violence.
I'm declaring war on my people. Time to fight against evil. Grouping and clicking only divides what's already unequal. Always stand strong on 10 toes and never waver. Only fellowship amongst true peers and keep my heart on the Savior. Stand on my own, filter all opinions. Lord has final say so. We all stand in his dominion.
You can't name a black man in this country who is sick and tired of the hell that he's catching who hasn't been to jail. You haven't got a man of God in the Bible that wasn't put to jail when they started speaking out against exploitation and oppression.
All right, y'all just tuned in and seen that backlash video premiere. I hope y'all enjoyed it, man. Thanks for hanging out with Camp A Republic. myself, Chili Baby. You know, shout out to the members that's not here, but still tuned in, watching and celebrating with us. This ain't nothing but a win for the camp. It's a win only if y'all support it, y'all understand it, y'all share it, y'all like it. You know what I mean? Let this thing go up, man. Let it go up in the name of Jesus and, you know, the glorification of the kingdom, because that's what we about, kingdom building, kingdom business. And, you know, just stay tuned. We got more coming. Make sure y'all lock it in. Keep that backlash going on. Camp A Republic on YouTube. Rare Breed 33C. Y'all hashtag that and tap in.
And that's on me, baby.
That part right there, man. Y'all make sure y'all checking that bank on it too.
Make sure y'all
That's
tune
going
in,
viral. That's the first video on the Camp A Republic. And
sure.
this one number 2. We got a lot more coming. Stay tuned. Yeah.
A Bobby Buck promotion.